Have you ever felt that small knot in your stomach when something stops adding up, but you cannot explain why? Picture this: it is late, her phone lights up, and her smile fades when you glance over. She says you are overthinking, yet a quiet voice is asking you to pay attention. That voice is not insecurity. It is data your mind has collected. In this video, we look at 11 hidden signs that she is not loyal, using a calm, stoic lens so you can respond with clarity instead of drama. If you want a love life built on trust and self-respect, stick with me to the end. These insights can help you spot patterns early, set fair boundaries, and choose peace over confusion. If that sounds useful, subscribe, tap like, and keep watching all the way through. Part 2 goes deeper into the signs most people miss and how to protect your time, energy, and heart. Point number 1. Sudden secrecy around devices. Have you ever been sitting next to someone you love and suddenly, the glow of their phone feels like a wall between you? Maybe you remember when you used to share silly memes, scroll through pictures together, or laugh at old texts. Back then, the phone was just another way you connected. But now, it's different. Imagine this. You're on the couch, your legs touching, and her phone lights up. She tilts the screen away, just slightly, but enough for you to notice. She quickly locks it, slips it face down, and changes the subject. Your heart doesn't just beat, it tightens. Have you felt that shift before? That subtle, quiet change where the person you once knew so openly now guards small corners of their life? At first, you might tell yourself it's nothing. Maybe she's just tired. Maybe it's work. But the pattern grows. She takes her phone to the bathroom. Her notifications disappear. She laughs at something but doesn't share what it was. Why do those moments stick with us so much? Maybe it's because love at its core is about trust. And when that trust starts to feel fragile, we can't help but search for the missing pieces. Think back. Have you ever been in a relationship where the smallest details started speaking the loudest? The way she typed a little faster, the way she put her phone away when you walked in, the way her eyes darted before answering your question? Those aren't just actions, they're signals. Sometimes secrecy doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It slips in quietly, almost politely, until you realize there's a distance you didn't agree to. The real question is, what do you do when that moment comes? Do you ask directly and risk sounding insecure? Do you pretend not to notice? Or do you trust your instincts even if they lead you to a hard truth? Sudden secrecy around devices is rarely about the device itself. It's about what's changing underneath, the openness, the comfort, the willingness to be seen. And in love, when someone starts hiding pieces of themselves, it's worth asking why, before those pieces disappear entirely. What about you? If this happened in your story, would you want to know the truth even if it hurt? Point number 2, inconsistent stories and timelines. Have you ever heard someone tell you a story and then tell you that same story again later? Only this time a few details are different? At first you might brush it off. Everyone forgets things, right? But then it happens again and again. And each time the pieces shift, small enough to be plausible, but large enough to leave you unsettled. Picture this. She says she went out with a friend last night. You ask how it was and she smiles, telling you about a funny thing that happened at dinner. A few days later, the story came up again. But now that dinner was apparently drinks after work, and the friend's name has changed. You catch yourself thinking, wait, that's not how she told it before. Why does that tiny moment hit so hard? Because our hearts are tuned to notice patterns, especially when something feels off. Love builds its foundation on consistency. When the facts keep changing, it's like watching hairline cracks spread through that foundation. Have you ever been in a relationship where you started mentally replaying conversations, trying to remember exactly what was said? Maybe you found yourself wondering, am I overthinking this or is she hiding something? That internal tug of war can be exhausting. The truth is, inconsistencies in stories don't always mean deception. Sometimes it's just forgetfulness. But when those inconsistencies are paired with evasive tones, quick subject changes, or defensiveness, they can point to something deeper. It's a strange feeling when you can't rely on the simplest details anymore. You start second-guessing not just what's being said, but the connection itself. And in those moments, you're faced with a question that isn't easy. Do I confront this, or do I keep listening and hope the truth surfaces on its own? Inconsistent stories are like breadcrumbs. They might seem harmless one by one, but if you follow them, they can lead you to a truth you weren't expecting. The real challenge is deciding whether you want to follow that trail or turn back before you see where it ends. If this were your story, Would you want to connect the dots, even if the picture it revealed broke your heart? Point number 3, emotional distance with no cause.
Have you ever been in the same room with someone you love,
Yet felt like you were miles apart? No arguments, no big fights, just a quiet shift you can't explain. One day, her laugh feels warmer than sunlight. The next, it's as if her mind is somewhere far away. Picture this, you're sharing breakfast, the same way you've done it 100 times. She's there, sitting across from you, stirring her coffee, but her eyes aren't really on you, they're somewhere else. The conversation feels thinner, like you're both reading from a script instead of leaving the scene. You ask how she's doing and she says, "I'm fine," but her tone is flat. No warmth, no spark. Have you felt that ache before? That creeping awareness that the person who once shared every thought with you now offers only fragments? You replay the last few weeks in your head, searching for a reason. Did you say something wrong? Did you miss something important? But the truth is, nothing happened. At least nothing you can see. The hardest part is that emotional distance doesn't come with a loud announcement. It just appears, slowly, quietly. A hug that lasts a second shorter, a kiss that feels like a habit instead of love. Fewer questions about your day, fewer "I miss you" texts. Sometimes that distance is a sign of internal struggles, stress, personal changes, or doubts she hasn't voiced. Other times it's the earliest ripple of a much bigger wave, fading interest, divided attention, or feelings she's afraid to admit. The danger is that it's easy to ignore. You tell yourself it's just a phase. You give it time. But time doesn't always heal what you don't talk about. So the real question becomes, when you sense that shift, do you gently reach for her and try to bridge the gap? Or do you wait, hoping she'll close the distance on her own? Because in love, silence between two hearts can grow faster than either person realizes. And once it reaches a certain point, sometimes you can't find your way back. If this were happening to you right now, would you risk asking the hard questions, even if you weren't ready for the answers? Point number 4, new friends you never meet. Have you ever heard a name come up in conversation, someone she's been spending time with, but somehow you've never actually met them? At first it seems harmless. People make new friends all the time. But as the weeks go by, this new friend keeps appearing in her stories, her plans, her weekends, and yet you remain a stranger to them. Picture this, you're sitting together and her phone buzzes. She smiles, says it's just a friend, and tucks the phone away. Later, she mentions how funny they are, how much they just get her. But there's no introduction, no group hangout, no effort to bring you into that part of her world. That part stays separate. Have you felt that before? That strange mix of curiosity and unease? You tell yourself not to be controlling. You want her to have her own life. But love is about connection. And connection means shared circles, shared moments, shared trust. When someone consistently keeps a relationship, platonic or otherwise, away from you, it's worth asking why. Is it about privacy, or is it about secrecy? The difference can be everything. Privacy respects the relationship while maintaining individuality. Secrecy builds walls between you brick by brick. Maybe you've been in that position before, hearing about inside jokes you're not part of, seeing her light up when she talks about them in ways she hasn't about you in a while, and you start wondering, why am I hearing about this person more than I'm seeing them? Why am I being kept at a distance from a connection that seems so central to her life? The truth is, a partner who's proud of you and your place in their life will want to integrate you into their world, not force you into every interaction, but at least make the bridge. When that bridge never appears, it's not an accident, it's a choice. So ask yourself, if this were happening to you right now, would you feel comfortable letting it go? Or would you want to step closer, even if it meant discovering a truth you weren't ready to hear? Because sometimes the people we're not allowed to meet are the ones holding pieces of a story we're not being told. Point number 5, defensive over small questions. Have you ever asked your partner something simple, something harmless, and been met with a reaction that felt way out of proportion? You ask, "Who were you texting?" Or "How was your day?" And suddenly it's like you've accused them of a crime. Their tone sharpens, their eyes narrow, and the air between you changes. Picture this. You're sitting at the kitchen table just chatting. You casually ask where she went after work. And instead of a normal answer, she bristles. "Why, don't you trust me?" She fires back, her voice louder than the question ever deserved. Now you're the one on the defensive. scrambling to explain that you were only asking, "Have you been there before?" Where a simple question feels like you stepped on a hidden landmine. You replay the moment in your head, wondering how something so small turned into something so tense. That's the tricky thing about defensiveness. It's not always about the question itself. Sometimes it's about what the question is brushing up against. In healthy relationships, curiosity is normal. Sharing details isn't an interrogation. It's part of intimacy. But when small everyday questions are met with hostility, it often means the person feels cornered, even if no one's chasing them. Maybe you've noticed patterns like this. They answer quickly but vaguely, change the subject or turn the question back on you. Over time, you might even stop asking just to keep the peace. But here's the danger in that. When you stop asking, you also stop connecting, and silence can hide more than you think. So ask yourself, if your partner reacts this way to little things, how would they respond if you asked something big? What would happen if you pushed past the defensiveness and looked for the truth beneath it? Because in love, it's not the size of the question that matters. It's the weight of the answer they're trying not to give. Point number 6. Plans that exclude you repeatedly. Have you ever been with someone who always seems to have plans that somehow never include you? At first, it might not bother you. Everyone needs their own space, their own friends, their own time. But slowly you start noticing a pattern. The events she talks about so excitedly are never ones you're invited to. Picture this. It's Friday night and you're at home while she's out. She told you she was going to just hang with some people from work, but she didn't ask if you wanted to come. Next week, there's a birthday dinner for someone you've never met. Again, no invite. She posts a smiling photo later, surrounded by people you don't know, and you're not even mentioned. Have you felt that quiet sting before? That mix of confusion and hurt when your partner's life feels more like a private club you're not a member of. You try to be understanding. You tell yourself she's just independent. She doesn't need me there for everything. But deep down you wonder, if she's building so many moments without you, what moments are you actually building together? Healthy space in a relationship means both people feel secure in it, but repeated. Exclusion is different. It sends the unspoken message that you don't belong in certain corners of her life. And over time, those corners can grow until they're whole rooms you're locked out of. Sometimes it's about avoiding conflict. Sometimes it's about keeping two worlds from colliding. And yes, sometimes it's because she's hiding something or someone she doesn't want you to see. Think about it. In a strong partnership, invitations aren't about obligation. They're about wanting your person there, even if they say no. When those invitations stop coming, it's worth asking why. So here's the question. If you realized someone you loved was slowly writing you out of their plans, would you wait for an explanation? Or would you knock on the door they've been keeping closed? Because sometimes it's not the events themselves that matter. It's the fact that they keep happening without you. Point number 7, flirting framed as harmless. Have you ever watched your partner laugh a little too much at someone else's jokes? Touch their arm just a little too long? Or trade playful remarks that carry a spark you can't ignore? And when you finally work up the courage to bring it up, they shrug it off with a smile. Oh, come on. It's harmless. Picture this. You're out together, maybe at a friend's gathering or a night out. She's across the room, leaning in close to someone, her eyes bright, her hand brushing theirs as she laughs. You tell yourself not to overthink, it's just her being friendly. But later that image plays in your mind like a loop you can't turn off. Have you been there before? That strange tug between trusting her and feeling that something is crossing an invisible line? The worst part isn't even the act. It's the dismissal. When you try to talk about it, she calls you jealous or too sensitive, turning your genuine discomfort into the problem instead of addressing the behavior itself. Flirting is tricky. It's not always about intent, but about impact. What's harmless to one person can feel like a crack in the foundation to another. In a relationship built on respect, boundaries are mutual. If something makes you uncomfortable, it's worth a real conversation, not a casual wave of the hand. Maybe you've experienced that uneasy feeling when you realize she enjoys that attention. Maybe she lights up in ways you haven't seen in a while, not with you, but with someone else. And you start wondering, if it's truly harmless, why does it keep happening? The truth is, people who value your heart will take your feelings seriously, even if they don't fully understand them. They won't hide behind "it's just a joke" or "you're overreacting." They'll listen. They'll adjust. So ask yourself, If the person you love keeps calling their flirting harmless, is it really harmless to you? Or is it quietly eroding the trust you've been building? Because sometimes, it's not the words or gestures themselves, it's the fact that they'd rather defend them than protect what you share. Point number 8, comparisons that undercut you. Have you ever heard your partner mention someone else in a way that made you feel smaller? Maybe it's subtle. He's so ambitious, or she's always so fun and spontaneous. But the way it's said lingers in your mind. It's not just an observation, it's a quiet measuring stick. And somehow you're on the shorter side. Picture this, you're both getting ready to go out and she casually says, "You should try dressing more like Ryan, he's always so put together." You laugh it off, but inside it stings. Later, maybe you're telling a story, and she interrupts with, "That reminds me of what Mark did, he's hilarious." It's not that you don't want her to admire other people, but when admiration comes at the cost of your confidence, it's different. Have you felt that slow erosion before? The kind where little comments start making you question if you're enough in her eyes? In healthy love, admiration is given freely, but it never feels like a comparison test you have to pass. Sometimes these comparisons are intentional, a way to push you, to spark jealousy, to see how you'll react. Other times they're careless, the result of someone not realizing how their words land. But either way, repeated comparisons can plant seeds of insecurity, and those seeds can grow into resentment. Think about it. How would you feel if every quality she praised in someone else was a quality you didn't have? Would you start trying to change yourself? Or would you start pulling away to protect your self-worth? The truth is, love isn't about finding someone who beats everyone else in every category. It's about feeling chosen for who you already are. When someone constantly measures you against others, they're telling you consciously, or not, that the choice isn't as solid as you thought. So here's the question. If the comparisons kept coming, would you speak up and set a boundary? Or would you quietly swallow the hurt, hoping she'd notice on her own? Because sometimes it's not the person she's comparing you to that matters. It's the fact that she's forgetting you should never have to compete in your own relationship. Point number 9, shifting values to match others. Have you ever noticed someone you love slowly start to change? Not because they've grown, but because they're mirroring someone else? At first, it might seem like nothing. A new hobby here, a new opinion there. But over time, the changes stack up, and you realize she's becoming a version of herself that feels unfamiliar. Picture this, when you first met, she was passionate about certain things, her music taste, her weekend routines, her beliefs about life and relationships. Those values felt like part of her soul. But lately, they've been shifting. She used to dislike late-night partying. Now she's out until 3 a.m. She once talked about saving money for the future. Now she's spending impulsively because life's too short. You hear a friend's name pop up alongside each new change, and you start wondering, who's really steering the wheel here? Have you seen that happen before? The way someone's identity starts bending to match the people they're drawn to? Sometimes it's a sign of wanting to fit in. Other times, it's a sign of being pulled in a direction they can't or won't admit to you. In love, shared values are part of what keeps two people aligned. When those values shift drastically and suddenly, without real conversation, it can feel like the person you chose is slipping away. And it's not just about lifestyle, it's about trust. If her priorities can change so easily under someone else's influence, what does that mean for the future you've been building together? Maybe you've experienced that unsettling moment when she defends a new choice with, "It's not a big deal," or "I've just changed." But deep down you can tell it's not just change, it's mimicry. And it leaves you wondering, if she can become someone else for them, who is she with me? The real danger isn't in the change itself, it's in the lack of authenticity. Love can handle evolution. What it can't handle is watching your partner's identity shape-shift every time a new influence appears. So here's the question. If you saw the person you love drifting into someone else's mold, would you fight to pull them back? Or would you let them go and see if they find their way back on their own? Because sometimes, losing someone doesn't happen in one moment. It happens little by little, each time they trade a piece of themselves to match someone else. Point number 10, low investment, high demands. Have you ever been in a relationship where you feel like you're doing all the heavy lifting, yet somehow, you're the one being told you're not doing enough? It's a strange, exhausting dynamic. You're pouring in time, effort, and care, but on the other side, you're getting the bare minimum. Picture this, you plan thoughtful dates, Send sweet messages and make an effort to check in on her day. She responds when it's convenient. Puts little energy into seeing you, but still expects your attention to be on demand. When she needs something, emotional support, favors, reassurance, you're expected to deliver without hesitation. But when is your turn? Suddenly she's too busy, too tired, or just not in the mood. Have you felt that lopsided pull before? The way love starts to feel less like a partnership and more like a transaction you're losing? It's not just about effort, it's about reciprocity. A healthy relationship runs on mutual investment. When one person is constantly withdrawing while rarely depositing, the balance eventually runs dry. Sometimes this imbalance happens subtly. She might start taking your gestures for granted. She might expect your availability as a given, without ever matching it. And the worst part? She may still frame you as the one who's falling short. It's worth asking, why would someone demand so much without giving in return? For some, it's entitlement. For others, it's because they know they can. And if you're someone who loves deeply, you may find yourself excusing it, telling yourself, it's just a phase. She'll come around. But phases have a way of becoming patterns. Think back. Have you ever been in a relationship where you started lowering your own needs just to keep the peace? Where did you stop asking for more? Because you knew it would only lead to disappointment? That's the trap of low investment. High demands. You give until you're drained, and by then, you've forgotten what being equally valued even feels like. So here's the question. If the love you're giving is far greater than the love you're receiving, would you keep giving in hopes they'll change? Or would you start giving that same energy back to yourself? Because sometimes, the biggest red flag isn't how little they give, it's how much they expect while giving it. Point number 11, good feelings backed by evidence. Have you ever had that uneasy feeling in your chest? The one you can't quite explain, but it won't go away? Maybe you've been telling yourself it's just paranoia, that you don't want to overthink. But then little by little, things start lining up in ways you can't ignore. Picture this. For weeks, something has felt off. She's been more distant, harder to reach, and strangely defensive. You keep pushing the thoughts away, until one night you notice a detail. Maybe a name on her phone, a receipt from somewhere she said she wasn't, or a story that doesn't match the timeline. It's small, but it confirms what your gut's been whispering. Suddenly, it's not just a feeling. It's a pattern. Have you been there before? That moment where your intuition shifts from suspicion to certainty? It's not about catching someone in the act. It's about realizing your instincts were right all along, and that can be both empowering and devastating. The human mind is good at collecting data we're not even aware of. Changes in tone, timing, body language. Your gut is often just your subconscious adding up all those clues before you've consciously processed them. That's why when the evidence appears, it clicks into place so fast. But here's the hardest part. Once you have both the feeling and the proof, you can't unknow it. You have to decide what comes next. Do you confront her? Do you quietly step back? Do you give her a chance to explain, or do you accept that you already have your answer? Maybe you've been in that exact position, staring at a truth you never wanted to confirm, wishing you could go back to the version of you that didn't know. But the reality is, once your instincts and the evidence align, it's usually not a coincidence. So here's the question. If your gut and the facts were both pointing to the same painful truth, would you still try to deny it? Or would you finally trust yourself enough to act? Because sometimes the heart needs proof, but the gut has known all along. You know, as we've gone through these 11 signs together, it's not really just about spotting disloyalty. It's about protecting your peace, your time, and your heart. Love should feel like a safe place, not a guessing game. And if you've been nodding along or feeling that little tug in your chest during this video, maybe it's because some part of you already knows what needs to be faced. I just want to thank you for spending this time here with me. You could be watching anything else right now, but you chose to be here to think, to reflect, and maybe even to see your own story in a new light. That means more than you know. This channel isn't just about videos. It's about building a space where we can talk about love in all its beauty and all its messiness. If this conversation helped you, inspired you, or even just made you stop and think, I'd love for you to stick around, hit subscribe, tap that like button, and let's keep growing this community together. And if you've got a story or a thought about what we've talked about today, drop it in the comments. I read them and they matter. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.